So this subject of our talk this evening is on balsam bashing and the experiences of working with Liffey communities. So myself and Ruth, so I'm Méabh Boylan and I'm the Biodiversity Officer with Kildare County Council, and Ruth Gaj McKeever, as you know, is the Community Waters Officer with LAWPRO, covering Kildare and other areas. And so together we're going to speak this evening about our experiences with the community group in Ballymore Eustace. So both of us will give brief overviews of our current roles, and I mean I think that's really important for how we fit in together in terms of our professional collaboration. And then I will talk through the Balsam project as it has evolved since 2021, and I'll hand over to Ruth then to explain the additional involvement of LAWPRO, which has happened this year, which has extended the project further downstream from where we started. And then Ruth will also speak about how there's benefits of the community water officers and biodiversity officers working together collaboratively with communities. So just to keep the ball rolling, I'll introduce myself first. And as I said, I'm the Biodiversity Officer with Kildare County Council. I've been in that role for about 2 years now. The Biodiversity Officer positions there's been a lot of them that have opened up in the last 2 years. Most of them are new to local authorities altogether. So I think nearly all, if not all, councils currently have a Biodiversity Officer. And those that have been hired under the Heritage Council programme are precluded from working on planning, so like development management planning, although many of us are based in the forward planning department, so we can give guidance on kind of strategic planning, so local area plans or other strategic plans happening for the council. And our role also involves just general awareness raising within the council and externally with community. And we provide training again internally and in the community, and a key part of our role is also gathering further data. So as many of you will probably appreciate, we don't generally have a great baseline data on many species or habitats in Ireland in general, so we're just I suppose a key part of our role is developing better data sets and conducting surveys and initiating I suppose quality monitoring systems for those. So as I said, within the local authority, we, on any given day, it can be totally different. The job is very varied. You can get a phone call from anybody in any department or from the wider community on specific issues or challenges. But in general, I suppose our role is assisting and advising management and elected members and different council teams on maybe particular projects or plans that are coming out. And then internally then there'd be quite a deal of collaboration personally with forward planning, the heritage team, the climate action team, and a bit with the culture team as well, and others, the parks department. So we do a lot, I suppose, trying to embed the topic of biodiversity throughout the council. Our main funding streams are through the National Parks and Wildlife Service and the Heritage Council at the moment. So the current kind of funding pot that we have access to from the local Biodiversity Action Fund, which is administered by the National Parks and Wildlife Service, is about 100,000 per year. And then the Heritage Council, we have access to about 20,000 per year. The priorities for national parks funds would be funding towards invasive alien species and the Natura 2000 sites, trying to develop management plans or doing improved surveys or spending money working to improve those sites in general. And then the Heritage Council's funding is really focused on the development of a biodiversity action plan for the council, and then once that is developed, the delivery of same. So I'll hand over to Ruth for her introduction.
Oh, thanks, Méabh. I'll leave it with you on your screen. I won't switch over or anything, so that's why you can move the slide for me. I'm not going to bother. Yeah, so hi, everybody. Yeah, so I'm Ruth Gaj McKeever, a Community Water Officer. So I have my office in Kildare, but I cover Offaly and parts of South Dublin. So I would have a lot of interactions with Méabh, which is fantastic, and how this project evolved and include LAWPRO. But I suppose most of you know what LAWPRO is, but I'm not going to go into it in much detail. Just a brief kind of overview of my role in LAWPRO, and just I suppose I don't really like acronyms, so it's a local authority waters program. I'm sure we're a shared local authority service, and our main aim is protection and restoration of freshwater bodies and coastal waters. So I suppose we want to be carrying out the goals of the Water Framework Directive and using the Water Action Plan as our guide to do that. All the stakeholders are listed in there and what we're supposed to be doing. So I'm not going to go into that in too much detail, but you will have our contact details at the end, and feel free to link in with us. Yeah, so I just highlighted, like Méabh, it's a very varied role being a community water officer. So I just highlighted a few things that we're involved in. We support citizen science projects, so that would be a big aim of ours to get involved with community groups that are carrying out citizen science to help develop those skills and create those teams and help them complete that citizen science project and hopefully continue on. So we mostly focus on the CSSI, which is a Citizen Science Stream Index. Many of you might have come across that, which is just looking at 6 species in particular, 3 species that are indicators of better water quality and 3 that are indicators of poor water quality. And using those species, it's an indication of what level of pollution you have in your river, if any. So we would get involved with community groups very often with that citizen science project, but we're open to any other water-based citizen science project supporting that. So we do as well as community water officers support the catchment team, so the catchment science team who are out on the ground assessing and monitoring water bodies in priority areas of action. So those areas that were identified as having poor water quality or needing further work, and they're identifying those issues that could be there and then passing them on to the relevant stakeholders. So we would help with those assessments. And then a big part of our role is to build relationships. That's what it's all about, really, working with the likes of Méabh in the local authorities, the biodiversity officers, heritage officers, but also just anybody who's involved, like the Rivers Trust as well, anybody who's involved in water management, protection, restoration, IFI, MPWS, Waterways Ireland. But our main, I suppose, target audience is the communities. So that's what we'll be focusing on, and that's what the rest of this talk is about. Oh, you move on, please, Méabh. Thank you. I tried to do it myself. Yeah, so it's not a funding talk, so I'm not going to go into this in a massive amount of detail. You can contact your community water officer for your area, and if you don't know who that is, you can contact me and I'll tell you. But just briefly, we have the small grants and events scheme that's open nearly all year round. And this is for those awareness raising events. It's for surveys, and it can go up to a max of £5,000. Now, normally it'd be 400 to 500 that you be getting funding for. But if you did have any events that you wanted to run, just thinking with your community water officer on that. We have the Heritage Fund. Now, this is to support Heritage Week. This was previously included in the small grants and events, but it's been taken out this year. And we've 30,000 just for this week to support groups around the country. We're talking 400 to 500 for an event. And if you did have an event, you could get in touch with us. So there's the Catchment Support Fund, which is the second year of that, and that's it's similar to the Heritage Council Support Fund for groups. So this is basically to support those core funding issues that groups have. So is it to pay for a staff member to actually help carry out the work? Is it to pay for a website? Is it to pay for rent? So it's to cover those core costs and help develop capacity. And that's closed currently for this year, but it'll be open again for next year as well. And then the one that's funded this project is the Community Water Development Fund. That'll be open again at the end of this year. And there's a strong focus on direct water quality results. And we're talking 50 grand for a group. That's max, really. That's what it was for 2025. And yeah, there's a list now, and there's guidelines here. It'll be on the presentation afterwards. You can have a look at it. And this year we funded over, was it €1 million, 54 projects in 24 countries. So there's a lot of activity around the country currently. So it's fantastic to see all that community involvement. Next slide, please, Bev. Yeah, so the types of projects, I'm not getting into this, but it gives you an idea. You can see it in the presentation afterwards. I suppose in particular to this one, you can see it's under landscape management action. So dealing with invasive alien species, that would be a big one we would support. We'd see direct water quality results, removing invasive species, and co-benefits to biodiversity and climate change. And this is a big part of our application as well. And we note down who must be contacted when you're trying to get involved in any of these particular types of projects. So you can see note 2 there under that one, contact your biodiversity officer in MPWS. But there's a lot of different actions I'm sure that you guys will be carrying out that could be covered under this fund. Yeah, next slide, please. So yeah, just if you're interested in finding out what projects are going on in your area, you can get onto our website and you can actually just click on the different projects. There's a map there. You can zoom into your area, and sometimes you have to zoom in close. There might be multiple under each other. If you go on to the next one, I think I show you a closed up, next slide, sorry, a closed up version of one. Yeah, so you can see my zoomed in there on Salins. You can see what they did, what they were involved in. Next slide, please. And yeah, and that was, yeah, you can see more about the ones that were approved for this year. I can tell you what they're doing, who the lead organization is, and yeah, it might give you some ideas if you didn't already have any, but I'm sure you guys seem to be, you're all well set up and have many ideas. Yeah, next slide, please. And yeah, that's the one that's we're going to be talking about today. So I'm not going to go into it in too much, and I'm going to wait until Méabh introduces. This is skipping a step onto my involvement. So yeah, there's the Ballymore Eustace project is on there, not too far from Baltinglass, so I'm sure it would be a good a link in for that group. Okay, yeah, over to Méabh. Thanks.
Super. Okay, so we'll dive into the project, and I'll just give the history, I suppose, of what happened even before I was in the role. I think I don't know whether to skip this, but I'll do a very light touch on what the plant is. It's native to the Western Himalayas. It is the tallest annual plant in Ireland, apparently now. So it can reach up to 3 meters in height, and that's obviously just a one growing season, one summer season. The plant's seed pods explode when they're touched, and flinging seeds, or seeds can be flung a considerable distance, and they are generally found along waterways and in damp areas. It tends to it has invasive qualities. It just takes over, and it has, I suppose, a negative impact on the ecology as well as water quality. So it shades out native plant species. The flowers attract pollinators away from native plants, so it's more of a distraction. It's in general, the insect species recorded foraging in and living in and around it are lower than what you'd find on native scrub. And it can accelerate riverbank erosion. And unfortunately, each plant can produce up to 2,500 seeds. So it's very, very problematic in terms of its ability to take over. So I suppose in Kildare, the very beginning of the project came from a local community biodiversity action plan that was drawn up with the support of Kildare County Council back in 2019. There's a really active group in Ballymore Eustace, community I should say, in Ballymore Eustace in general, and there's very strong ties with the River Liffey. It flows right through the village, and there's decades of community groups and individuals who have worked to raise awareness of the issues facing the Liffey in that area and trying to improve the environment around the Liffey. So that group, as I say, they engaged in developing a biodiversity action plan with the help of Kildare County Council, and Himalayan balsam was identified as one of the issues in the area. In 2021, then the Heritage Officer who had initiated the biodiversity action, the local biodiversity, the community biodiversity action plans to take place originally, she secured funding through the local biodiversity action fund, which is the national parks funding, and herself in collaboration with Jan Robert Bars of UCD, and he also runs Aquens Limited, which is a consultancy that tackles a range of invasive species. They collaborated in 2021 to using that funding to develop a project idea around how to tackle the Himalayan balsam. So in 2021, kind of the outputs that year were trying to get a handle on the extent of the infestation. So they mapped it, and they began to, from that then, they began to, I suppose, come up with ideas and a plan for treatment and management of it. And they would have done some initial treatment at that stage. In 2021, then, the outcomes were that they had mapped the distribution on the River Liffey. So the extent of the infestation was in Kildare was deemed to be from Ballymore Eustace all the way down to Selbridge. And so Himalayan balsam was found to be present along 62.5 kilometres. And as part of their work, they conducted a lit review. And whilst doing this, they found that Himalayan balsam must be controlled from upstream to downstream for obvious reasons, that the seeds can be pushed downstream during heavy rain or flood events. So you're always going to get seeds being brought into an area from the upstream extent of the infestation. So it was, I suppose, deemed then that Ballymore Eustace was the ideal or optimal place to start the control effort from, with a view to moving downstream over time. In 2022 then, Jan was again supported through the LBAF fund. So I think, I mean, just to give a bit of an idea as to the funding per year, it was between 10 and 15,000 per year each year from 2021. So in 2022, they would have focused on establishing the optimal control time. So they were doing surveys and recording, I suppose, the growth phases of the plant and the densities and so on. So they assessed the growth rate and the time at which Himalayan balsam flowers and set seed in the Irish context. Again, that research hadn't been conducted. And they did preliminary controlled trials. They found that pulling up individuals during the optimal control time was recognised as the most efficient method of control that could be conducted on a large scale by local community groups. So what that's getting at there is there's a very high, either can be a very high density of the plant when they're very young, but they tend to shade each other out as they mature, and so the density goes down over time. And so if you go in too early, there's issues like you might be trampling on very young saplings. You mightn't see them, and they'll persist then, even if you've removed a lot of the others. The ones that you've trampled on may persist and grow anyway. So leaving it a little bit later, they're more spread out, they're bigger, easier to identify, more robust, and so it's kind of that period from late May through to the end of July was deemed to be the ideal time. In 2023 then, that's when I started my role. We would have assembled stakeholders that summer, and we would have had a meeting. We disseminated kind of vital information around what we were hoping we'd be able to do. They established a management plan to start in early 2024, again with ACWENS. Again, it was National Parks funding, and the crucial AA screening was done at that stage because we're very close to my God, the reservoir that I can't think of the name of, Pulafuka. And so that work was done in 2023, and it was kind of teed up to get the community involved. Now, throughout that time, Jan Robert Bars and his team at ACWENS would have been out treating stands of it and I suppose identifying the areas that had been treated and response rates to that as well. So in 2024 then, we had a really fantastic stakeholder meeting. We just a community meeting of an evening in the summer. Jan came and presented the work that he had done to date, and I suppose rallied the community. We had Maria O'Neill step forward as a volunteer, and she's been incredible. And some of you maybe have heard her speak before on this project. So she just basically took out her phone and took down everyone's number, anybody who was interested, to join a WhatsApp group. And that year, Jan would have continued to do work on inaccessible banks, but in the town itself, Maria took over with the help of all the volunteers and started to do the balsam bashing. I find the word bashing probably isn't 100% accurate, but because a lot of it is actually pulling and cutting, but maybe we can get into that later. But So the methodology and everything had been developed by Jan and had been shared with National Parks and Wildlife. Obviously, they're funding the project, but also the local ranger was engaged and consulted around the methodologies being used, and we made sure that they were entirely happy with that. So then in 2024, on the left-hand side there, the map is where Himalayan balsam was found. So kind of the grey area to the right of the image is the town itself of Ballymore. You can see the town goes right down to the riverbank. So there's a lovely riverbank walk along that area of the river. So the community would have worked on that right-hand side, that easterly side of the river. And then Jan and his team would have worked kind of on that south bank and the left-hand side, the western bank in other areas where it was less accessible. But Jan could do it with kayaks and trained staff. On the right-hand side, then the image on the right-hand side is the treatment areas. So where the treatment took place, basically all that stretch. So where it had turned from pink to green. And this year we have, again, through the Local Biodiversity Action Fund, we have Jan working with the community in that area. And we're continuing to support the community and support Jan to, I suppose, rid that section of the river of Himalayan balsam. Overall, the community response is really positive and they've actually found it to be a very enjoyable activity. The insurance was tricky at times, but overall it has been overcome. And then, yeah, very much so, teamwork makes the dream work in terms of collaboration we have the scientific guidance given by Jan, we have the funding coming through from the county council so far, and the community engaging on a number of levels through their biodiversity action plan and then through volunteerism. And obviously now we have LAWPRO coming on board as well, which Ruth will fill us in on in a minute. So just a very brief update on from this year. So I suppose the whole time, every time I've been speaking about this project in the last year or so, it's been tentative. I've been afraid that we were maybe overselling what we were doing because we hadn't had a chance to really measure. We hadn't seen the response of the community's work. So at this stage now, in June, middle of June, late June, we have seen a response and it's been really, really impressive. I'm so relieved, we haven't just been, talking the talk. So we see a vastly reduced amount of regrowth this year. Like, it's incredible. It's totally different. The landscape along the river, that bank, the walkway along Ballymore Eustace is totally changed. We can definitely speak more confidently now about the project. We can see the change. And just to point out, I mean, it's 2025 now. This project essentially started in the funding pumped into it would have started in 2021. So we can be very optimistic about the future extension with LAWPRO. On the right hand side there, sorry, just in the middle of that slide, there is just the poster of our community event this year, just to remind us that we engage with the community again this season to try and get more volunteers on board and to explain the problem to the local community, and that was well attended this year. But if you want to just take a moment to read, I don't know, can you read that slide? Yeah, so I'll read it. So this is the WhatsApp group for the Himalayan group. Himalayan Balsam community group in Ballymore Eustace, and it's from Maria, and she says, great news, first phase all done. We're actually finished before we started last year, so by a day, and so that is such an achievement, and she thanks everybody, and they're going to expect to go back out to work. So it's just incredible. Like, the difference is really heartening, and we know we're onto something here. So I'll hand over to Ruth.
Oh, thanks, Méabh. I suppose I'm just going to go into briefly how just the stages of how I got involved as well. So it's kind of useful, I suppose, if you're thinking about developing a project, knowing all those stages that were involved, and Méabh gave a great summary there of them all. Yeah, so I suppose myself and Méabh have a common goal, and we would talk in the local authority. Biodiversity and improving biodiversity around waterways would be a main goal of ours as well, with water quality benefits too. The fact that Himalayan balsam dies down in winter and it leaves bare bank, which then can allow pollution to enter into waterways, would be a big one for us, as well as the fact that it's reducing biodiversity, as Méabh discussed, and it's outcompeting native flora. So then, yeah, we were chatting and she said, oh, I have this, we were doing this project, come to this meeting. So I'm in that photo in 2024. I was at that community meeting and shared it with the network that I have as community water officer, which is a benefit that we can do. And because there's a lot of, like yourselves, there's a lot of groups that would really want to remove Himalayan balsam. How do we do this? So it was a great opportunity for them to hear how it worked. And while I was there, I chatted to Maria, and Maria was like, oh, I have some ideas. So she talked about extending the project, and this is where those strong community voices come into play, like yourselves, where she basically got in contact with the landowners below Ballymore Eustace, where the community had stopped basically, um, and said would they be interested in taking part in a Himalayan balsam removal project, and they were very much on board. So we discussed a funding application, myself and Maria, when she had those people on board. We had an engagement with them before we even applied to make sure what they wanted from the project. Did they understand what they were signing up to? Did they have any worries? And it was all answered at that stage. And we had Méabh there. Obviously, it's a continuation of it downstream, and it's important for Kildare County Council. But we also had Aquens, the potential consultant, who we were looking to get involved with this element as well. So Jan was able to discuss certain elements of that project as well to the farmers. And we had different farmers as well. There's arable, sheep, and there were some horses came on then later. So yeah, they were very positive. Then Jan said he would go out and discuss what method they would use, what would be implied in the application. And he went out to them, discussed the methods that could be used, and then that was actually inputted into the application. So we had a plan in advance of it going in, and everybody was on board. And we had such help from Méabh and Jan and work on the ground from Maria that it was a very good application going in. I'm sure we can share a lot of those details as well, if you're interested, a summary of what went into it. But yeah, they got granted over 27 grand then to go further downstream. Approximately 10 kilometers is the goal, involving those landowners. Now, those landowners are actually doing a lot of the work themselves, and I'll get into who's helping them now with that as well. So we also had, after this, a stakeholder engagement. So once we got the funding, we met up with the farmers again, made sure they knew what was going on, how they were going to be contacted, who was involved. And then we had 2 community meetings. So obviously Méabh had her main community meeting again this year. And then we had a request come in from a group downstream, Newbridge Tidy Towns, who wanted to find out what was going on and how they were very heartened to hear about the work and encouraged to continue, that they would be stopping Himalayan balsam from getting downstream of them as well, and that it had started at the beginning of the river of where it was identified. Next slide, please. I keep trying to remove it myself. This is just an example of the Himalayan balsam in one of the buffer zones of the farmers. So it can show you that removing this is absolutely going to make those buffer zones effective, and they will know how to deal with it themselves afterwards. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what was covered in this element of the project with the farmers? So as part of our engagement in it, MPWS wanted a bird nesting survey and mammal survey, so that had to be included in the application, and that was improved, which is great, to identify any of those areas that could be sensitive and to then avoid them. So you can see in the time schedule there of when those were going to be carried out. And then we had, which I think is great that it was accepted in the application, they're going to be monitoring the efficiency of the different approaches that are going to be used. So some of the farmers are going to be pulling, some of them are going to be cutting, and some of them are going to be mulching as well. So those different methods to see how successful the control measures are. There's a plot in each of those zones that isn't going to be controlled, and then a plot that is going to be controlled, and that'll be assessed afterwards. And then that'll give us really useful information on what's the best way to treat Himalayan balsam under different scenarios and different farming. And another really interesting one as well is the impact of the Himalayan balsam on the aquatic life in the river. So obviously those flies are coming out and they're using the riparian habitat, and if that's different, if that's all Himalayan balsam, it is going to impact what you would assume those macroinvertebrates are living in the water. But we need to actually prove this and to see if there's any results that can be used to show the benefit of actually removing Himalayan balsam and how it can improve aquatic life. And then there's project reporting and communications. And I have to say, and from Maria's feedback as well, it's been fantastic communication from Aquens, who was brought on board as the lead consultant, because obviously they have a lot of information and history in that area with the Kildare County Council. But then we brought on Invas as well, which is the subcontractor that is going out to the farmers to help them control Himalayan balsam on their land. And then there's landowner control as well. They are making their own efforts. We're not just going on and doing it for them. They're actually actively engaged in removing it themselves and on board with it. And then this is together with volunteer control, which is being supported by Kildare County Council. So it's a fantastic mix of different people involved in it. Yep, thanks. Yeah, so the outcome, you can see there, it's very positive. There is recovery. There are native species coming back. And as Méabh said, there's not much. The Himalayan balsam hasn't appeared so much this year as well, which is fantastic. And we'll have some great data at the end of this, as Méabh was saying, that's what, to get that data to prove it's beneficial is fantastic. So there is improved biodiversity as a result, improved water quality. I suppose the macroinvertebrates will tell us a story there as well on the water quality element too. But the fact that there's active, efficient buffer zones will be great. And then those project learning. So we'll learn, as I said, is what method is efficient, what method is best, and the timings they already kind of have down as well, but it will perfect that even more. And the fact that it's replicable, that's one thing important to LAWPRO funding is this project something that can be carried out in different locations? And it very much is. And it's a very easy one to do. Volunteers can go out and remove it themselves. And I suppose, I think Méabh mentioned as well that when they're removing, it comes up all the time, oh, can we put it in a bag and put it somewhere else? And it's all being removed and left on site. You need a license to remove it. So they're informed by Méabh at the community meetings, and Jan and Maria about how they remove it, the community groups. And obviously I would be passing on the same message. And then a really nice one, improved well-being. So I know this isn't a water quality benefit, but mental health and well-being was a big outcome that the group had passed on to us, that they had a lot of comments about well-being and feeling that they were part of the community. So I think that was a lovely outcome of it. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so flying through this, I'm not going into these. I included these slides as just a mini update. Jan had put these together for the community meeting, and I thought it would be lovely just to show some of the images. So the survey for birds and otters has taken place. If you can go on, and I'll show you some pictures. So it's not working. I knew I was going to do that. Sorry, I had that time to come on at different times, so you can't see it properly. But anyway, you'll see it in the presentation later. So the plots were established and they were cordoned off. So when we were out there, so myself and Méabh went out there for their first day to remove Himalayan balsam. We came across a plot and it was very clearly marked, do not enter here. This is a control location. So Himalayan balsam will be allowed to thrive there. So that's established. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, and this is a picture Jan shared of Invas going onto one of the farmers' land, and I just thought it was amazing. Just a vast sward of Himalayan balsam just decimated, which is fantastic. So hopefully, that'll be happening on all the farmers' lands along those 10 kilometers. We'll be they will be reviewing the progress. I'll be happily reading it afterwards about what's effective, what native plants are coming back, and they'll be sharing that with everybody at the end as part of their reporting. Yeah, next slide. And yeah, so the timeline, you can just see a lot of it has happened, and this might be useful for you guys afterwards to see what kind of timeline that they are expecting. And I know that Maria actually, she has pre-recorded a presentation for us before, and that's something that we can share with groups too about Himalayan balsam, I'm sure. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so they did find some really interesting species that was important to know at the start of the project. So 54 species of bird were recorded. 36 of them green list, sorry, low conservation concern, 14 amber list, medium conservation concern, and 4 on the red list, which is really important for us to know. High conservation concern. I'll just show you just some beautiful bird pictures that you can read about later. Great spotted woodpecker, green list, was found in the woodland. And sorry, go back or go forward. Yeah, move the slide, please. Yeah, and I just highlighted here as well. So common buzzard was found green list, but this was a big thing that I've come across in my past job with bird watches. Like our buzzards, you know, they're after livestock, and you know, I suppose their main prey would be rats, grey squirrels, rabbits, young crows. They do not go after young lambs. They might eat dead livestock, already dead livestock. They're scavengers. You'd often see them flying along the M50 looking for roadkill. So yeah, not really a threat. Yeah, next slide, please. Stock doves, red list, were found. You can read about those later. And then your Eurasian skylark, a beautiful sound of spring and summer, was heard on the amber list. Yellow hammers, which are in decline, on the red list was found, and green list common cuckoo as well. Yeah, white-throated dipper. So the waterways birds in particular, which also can be an indication of water quality as well. The dipper green list was found. Common kingfisher, amber, they were around as well, and the grey wagtail, which is more of a red list bird. But yeah, it's fantastic to see these. So I'm not really going to go into these in too much detail, just to say that often I know community groups are contacted by a lot of different organizations and officers, and maybe competing for the same thing. So it's just to show that, you know, LAWPRO and biodiversity officers, especially community water officers and biodiversity officers, are trying to work a lot closer now, so that we're joining forces on certain water related projects and supporting each other and the communities. So you can see a load of events that some of the community water officers and biodiversity officers have already worked on together. So festivals, the immersive experience, which was in Taisce. I don't know if anyone saw it, and it's going to be going to hopefully Monaster Evan in the end of August, September. So you sit in and you're kind of immersed in a wetland experience and sounds and everything. So it's fantastic. And yeah, we work with the Rivers Trust as well, and yeah, we work with back groups and helps support formation of those. So yeah, next slide. Yeah, just more pictures. Nice pictures. Yeah, so 3 takeaways. I know we discussed this, myself and Méabh, and you can see there's a long process involved in some of this, and hopefully just by experience it shortens that process, but it's just to trust that it will work out in the end. It can take a while to come together, but you'll get there. And you will see fantastic results. Well, you know, don't want to oversell that either, but there will be results. Find community leaders, it's essential. And like yourselves, we need them, and collaboration is so important. So yeah, and yeah, I'll stop there. Thanks, guys.